Hey guys, it's Mark Holthe here, Canadian immigration lawyer, ex-immigration officer, and former high school teacher, going live once again at our regular time of noon Mountain Standard Time, right here on the Canadian Immigration Institute Facebook page. Those of you who are also tuning in on the Express Entry Law Private Facebook group, I'll extend a welcome to you, and those who are watching this as a recording on both of those sites, as well as my Canadian Immigration Institute YouTube channel. So welcome. We'll wait a few minutes here as people chime in. Christine says, hi, Mark. Hi, how are you? And we also have Franco, who's chiming in from Argentina. Very cool. And so what we'll do is we'll just wait a few minutes for people to connect and for their Facebook timelines to show that I am now live. So a couple things I'll add while we're going through this. If this is your first time watching this and you have a question that you want me to share, I'm going to pull up a couple things here quickly, right here and here. If you have a question that you want me to answer or consider answering here, just send an email to Stephanie right here at stringham.ca and put EE Live Q&A in the subject line. And I can tell you guys that this week, the response was astounding. In fact, I had so many emails sent that I had to select and really be careful how many I was choosing, because it could take up the whole EE Live Q&A. And the whole purpose of an EE Live Q&A is to reward those who are attending live. So I can see we've got just a bunch of people who've chimed in, which is really cool. And so those of you, if you do not get your question answered today, you can consider sending an email here to Stephanie and putting EE Live Q&A in the subject line. But I want to apologize for people who took the time to send it in, and I wasn't able to answer it. It's impossible to answer all of them. It was crazy how many I received. Now, I do want to let you guys know a couple things about this process. The questions have to be of general nature, so they have to be of interest and benefit to all of the listeners. So that's the first criteria I look at. And if instead you're asking questions like, let's see, Hamank here sent a question that basically said, here's my profile. Can you assess it and let me know if I have a chance or not? Well, that, my friend, actually is something that I do in my paid consultations. So in a Facebook Live event that I'm doing right now, it would be not very good for everybody else who is watching for me to take half an hour to assess all of the credentials that a person has to determine whether or not they would have a good chance of actually being able to immigrate. And so those are reserved for all of my amazing clients who connect and book a paid consultation. I'm going to put the link to the consult here in, at least on the Canadian Immigration Institute Facebook page. And then individuals like Hamank here, who sent that question in, can actually go there, book a consult, and we can go through everything in detail. A quick little look here, Hamank. It's pretty clear that you've got a good shot at it, but there's lots of things that we have to assess. Also, I received another email from Shakira, who wanted me to assess the job duties to determine the proper knock. That is also something that is obviously specific to Shakira and no one else, and would require a paid consultation. Okay. All right, so while we're waiting, let's just see who's tuning in. Let me know where you're listening from, so post in the comments. I love to see that. So we know Franco's Argentina. DC says hi, Mark. Parth says hi. Mark Reyes says hello from New Jersey. Hello, Mark. Jerome says hi. Satnam, hi. Nazrul says hi. Jerome's from India. Very cool. Wallace is tuning in from California. Awesome. And there's Hamank. He said, I just hope my question comes up. Hamank, you're the one that I said, when it comes to assessing your full qualifications, you really need to book a paid consultation. And remember, the questions have to be general in nature so that they benefit everybody. The more your question can benefit listeners versus being specific, the greater likelihood I will have an opportunity to actually use your question as a part of my group. Okay. Mahesh says, hi, Mark. Nice tie. You look smart today. Oh, do you know what? Check this out. I'll show you smart. There we go. Now I'm really smart. Today is the look like a lawyer day today. So I've got my full suit on that I'm rocking today. All right, that's awesome. Okay, Lasser says hello. Satnam says he wants a work permit to Canada. Sorry, my friend, I don't help people with work permits. And then we've got some other questions. And so Hamonk says, yeah, thanks. Thanks for understanding, Hamonk. I really appreciate that. I get a lot of people who want a free assessment, and unfortunately, it's not something that I can do. Mohammed said, how's everything? Doing awesome. Trisha is Trinidad. Hello, Trisha, who's quite close to my dear son, who is in Suriname, serving a mission for our church. Ben, hey, Ben, how are you doing, my friend? Okay, Kaji is from Pakistan. Maribel is in Dubai. Samantha is in Florida. Very cool. Okay. All right, guys. Well, that's kind of a quick little shout out to some of the first people who were watching. But it looks like we got a really, really good group of people. And remember, when it comes to your questions, if you'll hold off and we'll go through the ones that were sent in via email first, then I'll devote the remainder of the EE Live Q&A to all of you awesome people who are tuning in live. So hold off on your questions and we will get to those in just a little bit. Okay, so a couple things I wanted to show you guys while we went through those housekeeping matters is for some reason people seem to like seeing what I'm doing every week. And my intention always is to make sure that people know I'm a real human being. I'm not some robotic lawyer who doesn't care or have a life or anything like that. So I wanted to show you what I did over the weekend. And as many of you know, I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And we have awesome youth groups that we do camps, we do activities once a week, and those things cost money. So every year at our local fair, we have these jumbo ears. Some of you probably, if you're in Canada out east, have heard of them called, what do they call them? Beaver tails, I think, but we call them jumbo ears. And so these kids, myself there and my family, my wife and my children, we volunteer for a shift to make these elephant ears. And this right here is, maybe it'll just go over top. This is what we're making. It is the fattiest fried bread with cinnamon and sugar and butter and goodness. And, and when we make them, they're folded and put into that little thing. And then that's how we sell them as a fundraiser. And so I had the opportunity to do that on Friday. And I was the shift supervisor. So those in food service, I had a little taste of what it's like to work in a food establishment of some form. And then I'll show you a few other pictures. My daughter here, she was on the cinnamon and sugar line. So she's grabbing the cinnamon and sugar to spread it on there. And when it's busy with our local fair, we can pump out a ton of these. And okay, so we've got that. And then my son, he was at the front queue taking orders. And then here's me and Michaela. I just wandered around and made sure everybody was doing what they were supposed to do. So awesome. Anyways, I just wanted to share those little pictures with you. And we made lots of money that is now going to be used to help buy equipment for our camps and tents and all those kinds of things. And that's what I love. So it was fun. And we all kind of worked. Everybody took a shift in there, and that little booth was open for, I think, about 5 days, I think it was. Anyway, so that's what Mark has been doing this past week. I did some other things too, but we'll stop off with that. So those who are curious, that's what I was doing. All right, let's start off here with some email questions. And those who have posted, I just want to make sure here. Let's see. I think we've got it all in here. Oh. Okay. Amir Khan says, I spoke to Mark for a 20-minute consultation and completely changed my approach to express entry. I'd been wasting money with consultants, and Mark told me honestly what my chances were for getting to Canada. Awesome. Thanks for posting that, Amir. Amir, I really appreciate that. Okay, so moving forward, other people have been posting a few things. And so just hold off for now, and I'm going to go through some of these email questions. And these email questions may very well answer your very question that you're posting now. So hang tight there. Okay, so let's start off with Manish here. So Manish says, good to see you recovering well. Yes, I am feeling a whole lot better. This is Manish from New Delhi. I always watch your weekly videos on YouTube, and thank you for posting such informational videos. You're very welcome, my friend. So this question is about proof of funds. And he says, I have more than sufficient funds in my account, 21,300, and the required funds are 19,390. However, out of the total funds, 7,400 were added 1.5 months ago. Now, there are two scenarios. Will I be questioned where I got these funds, as these are recent funds? If not, I am good here. Otherwise, I can take a gift deed from my father-in-law in my name or my wife's name. If I take a gift deed, is it advisable to take on my name or wife's name? So we'll leave it at that. So basically what Manish is saying is that he didn't have the full amount in his account for 6 full months. And I want to emphasize to everybody that that is not a mandatory requirement. You don't have to actually have the funds in your account. And I'm gonna go right here to the site. I'm gonna share my screen with all of you guys. Hopefully I can remember to shut it off, because usually I let it keep going. So this is the site. You can search for it yourself. This is the source of all that's good. So all of the information that you can rely on, I rely on it pretty heavily. So you can search and you just scroll down till you find the right section. I just did a quick little word search here. Proof of funds. So this is where the confusion comes from. So if you're looking here, it talks about that you need to provide an official letter, blah, 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 and then what it must include. And you can see your name, contact information for the financial institution, the account numbers, the date each account was opened, the current balance, as well as the average balance for the past 6 months. So remember, this is where people are thinking, okay, with the proof of funds, and if we go here to proof of funds, IRCCEE, and we pull up this page, it takes us right here so we can see how much we need. So if 19,390 is how much Manish needed, that means he has 3 family members. So this doesn't mean that you necessarily have to have all of that money in your account for 6 months, and that the letter that is issued by the bank state that. But what it does mean is that the government wants to ensure that when you file your EAPR, that you have that required funds. So in your case here, Manish must have gotten this money from his father-in-law. And so if you did get money that was given to you, I always get a gift deed. And whether it's a gift deed into the name of you or your wife, as long as your spouse is accompanying you, it doesn't really matter. The key is to be able to trace where the funds came from. If it's just your employment income, then that's easy, right? But if it's a gift from someone, you need to confirm with IRCC that it is indeed a gift. Now, many officers may not think twice about this. They may not even think about $7,400 that's been put into your account. But I don't take chances, because you guys have seen what happens to people when they have the smallest thing off. And then what happens? The government returns your application. And then what happens? Well, you may have received your invitation to apply at a comprehensive ranking system score that is never hit again. A score of, say, 456. And it never goes back down to that level again. And now, more than ever before, as the CRS scores keep rising and rising and rising, you have no room to take a chance. So, in your situation, Manish, I would get the gift deed. If you want it to be given, if it was a gift to your wife, then get it into your wife. If the account is yours and your wife's account, and that's where the funds were placed, then it doesn't matter if it's yours or hers. For all intents and purposes, you're both traveling to Canada together. Okay, next one. This one, I'm not sure what the person's name is. It could be Prakash, but I'm not sure. He or she says, greetings. I want to diss out a particular situation and then ask the question. So he said, I began my study for mechanical engineering in 2013 and parallelly started a training program with the company. So the issue here is education and work experience happening at the same time. After 1 year of study and training, the company certified me to work as a mechanical engineering technician. I worked for 36 hours per week. Okay, that's important because 30 hours a week is full-time while my study was going on. I later joined the company in 2017 as a mechanical design engineer. So this was experience done in 2013, a number of years before he officially joined as an engineer. On the total, if we see I've worked 30 hours plus each week for the last 5 years. Is all the work experience during my study and post that valid for 5 years of full-time work experience? And then he indicates that he was paid in cash, but he's got pay slips and salary certificates. Well, this is a great example of a question that I get a lot of. And can you claim work experience for work history that you have accumulated while you're going to school, even school that is needed technically? Well, I shouldn't say technically, but that supports the work that you're doing. And the short answer is yes, you can. The key is that you are establishing that you are performing all or a substantial number of the main duties associated with that position. Education is irrelevant when it comes to counting work history for the purposes of express entry. Now, obviously, if you're saying that you're working as an astrophysicist or a rocket scientist and you have no education other than your high school level, well, then maybe they're going to question the genuineness of that work history. But in this case, if you're working as an engineering technician while you're also going to school, which I'm assuming is also, leading up to you being an engineer, that's totally fine. As long as you've worked full time, you're paid at least 30 hours a week, and it's continuous employment for at least that first year, then you're in good shape. All right, great question. Okay, this question is from Visha. Visha, okay, I just had a consult with Visha. Okay, she says, hi, Mark. I was supposed to ask you this at our consultation yesterday. When submitting additional documents without them being requested, such as a letter of explanation, will it cause delay when the application is awaiting review by a senior visa officer? So here's the thing that you need to understand. Anytime that you add an explanation in that isn't requested, there is the possibility that it could delay or take more time with your application, always. But just like we discussed in your consult, and like I discuss with all of my clients, it is far better to be preemptive, to be proactive, and deal with any issues you think might be an issue before having an officer formulate their own opinion on how to treat information where it's confusing. So many people will do collect their GCMS notes. They'll get a report back saying that the officer have sent it for review because of work history or proof of funds or something that they're questioning. Well, the best time to deal with that is immediately. If you see it and they have not yet sent you a procedural fairness letter, which basically is a letter saying, we have concerns about this, can you explain? Well, preempt it. Send in a case-specific inquiry, explain or provide further clarification, because that may just make the difference in helping an officer to see that how you explain things in your first application maybe was confusing, and now you're able to clarify where an officer says, oh, okay, now I get it. And you may actually be able to save time in the end, because anytime they send a fairness letter out, they usually give you 10 days or longer to respond, and that can delay your application too. So great question, Visha, great question. And I really enjoyed our consult yesterday. And in fact, I have a ton of consults. Today I have 7, I think. And I still wasn't going to block out this EE Live Q&A because that was important. But for those of you who are wondering, I do have up until tomorrow, I'm still offering my special half off consult rate. So you can book a consultation with me if you reach out to right here, stephanie@stringham.ca, or go to the consult link in the comments section and request a consult and make sure that you identify you heard about it here on the EE Live Q&A that I do. Okay, so so going forward, the most important thing to realize is that, yeah, it could, but what? You're who cares if it takes a little bit longer? The reality is you want to make sure that you give yourself the best chance of success. And if that means it takes 7 months to process your application instead of 6, well, I'd rather take that extra month than have my application refused. Okay, this next one is from Dr. Kizar. Dear Mark, thanks for the opportunity you provided for the question and answer section. I'm a PhD graduate and have completed my doctoral from Malaysia. I also assisted my supervisor in the research and have got research publications. Great. I was on scholarship and was paid a stipend every month. I did not take any courses during the PhD as my PhD was totally research-based. It took me 3 years to complete the PhD program. However, during my PhD studies, I was on a student visa as the Malaysian government don't give the work permit for PhD. So I want to ask, can I take my PhD as work experience for my case? I will be thankful to you for your assistance in this regard. Well, Dr. Kazar, one thing that you've left out here, well, actually, no, you didn't leave it out. It all comes down to whether or not you can establish the same things that I just finished explaining. Were you paid? Well, you said you were paid a stipend every month. I don't know how much that is, but paid, did you perform the duties? A substantial number of the main duties of your NOC position profile. And for those who are tuning in, we'll just shift right here and I will go to NOC and it's 2016. And then we'll put here the actual position we'll pull up for Kazar, which we'll say is research assistant. I think I spelled that. Nope, I didn't. See what happens if you spell it wrong. Assistant. It will not pull it up. So post-secondary teaching and research assistant. Maybe this is what Kazar performed. So in his case, it really comes down to, did you complete all the activities in the lead statement? And did you perform a substantial number of the main duties? So if it's a research assistant, then these are the main duties. But when it comes to the actual employment requirements and things like that, those are irrelevant for the purposes of express entry when they're calculating work experience, foreign work experience. And then one other thing I'll show you, which comes back to the Federal Skilled Worker Program and the eligibility assessment. If we pull this up and take a look at this, you will see here, what are the minimum requirements for work experience? And this is what we're trying to prove, Kazar, and the questions that were asked in the previous email as well. It has to be skilled, and that's where we get this NOC classification. I'll give you a quick little hint. This second digit right here, if it is a 3, 2, 1, or 0, it's skilled. If it is a 4, 5, then it is not. And so it has to be at least, the second digit has to be at least a 0, 1, 2, or 3, but nothing higher than that. All right, so back here, skilled position, so 0A or B, then you can see here, you must show that while working in your primary occupation, you perform the duties set out in the lead statement, and it includes all the essential duties and most of the main duties. Well, most is substantial, and I usually count that as about 75%. So if you look here at the duties for a research assistant, well, there's only really 2 described here, so you better make sure that you're performing those duties. And most research assistants, it's not terribly convoluted. You need to make sure that you've performed that. Within this group also is post-secondary teaching assistants, and they are 2 distinct positions. So you need to then look at those if that's your job duties. So we go back here. So you need to perform, and look at this, the same job type within the last 10 years, paid, and you can see here, unpaid internships don't count, it has to be paid. 1 year of continuous work, or 1,560 hours, which is 30 hours per week minimum, and then it shows how you can accumulate it. 1 full-time job, equal amounts in part-time, or working a couple jobs at the same time, okay? And really you max out at 30. So that's what's expected. Once you've met the 1 year continuous work, I will point out, guys, once you've met this 1 year of continuous work, then you've met the minimum threshold. And then after that, if you have enough points under the Federal Skilled Worker Program's eligibility section, then you can pull work experience towards your comprehensive ranking system from other NOC codes. All right? Okay, good question. Very good question. All right. So in your case, Kazar, it's just a matter of whether or not you met those requirements. Okay, Raza says, my question is about experience letters. My company provided the salary in cash. I have only appointment letter, job reference letter, and experience letter mentioning all the details of the job. Will it create a problem? Well, in every case, you want to try to satisfy the minimum expectations that the government has. So if you go back here, I'm going to go back to the completeness check site. This time I'm going to pump in work history, and that takes us right here. And so this section here, proof of work experience, I'll close this. Everybody knows the positions have to be listed in your reference letter, and then you need to prove job title, duties, responsibilities, job status, dates worked, number of hours worked. If you're in Canada, they always ask you to provide a copy of your T4, a notice of assessment issued by the Canadian Revenue Agency. And in like manner, if you're in another country and you have something similar in your country, I'll often include that. But in this case, Raza, paid in salary is not an issue necessarily, but it would be better if people did have an actual pay slip, because that's one of the things that the government lists in the your personalized document checklist to accompany your reference letter if it's available. But if it's not, then yeah, the onus is on you to prove these things right here. And if you're struggling to be able to prove your annual salary and benefits, in other words, you can't get a letter, then, what did you do with the cash? Did you deposit it? Did you file taxes? Do you have something similar to a T4 or notice of assessment? So all of those things play a role, and it's just a matter, Raza, in making sure that based on your own personal circumstances, you're going through every avenue that you have available and trying to prove those things. And that's another thing that I do in a lot of consultations. I meet with my clients, we look at their whole situation and then build their case. All right. So thank you. Good question. All right. Next here, this one is Kunal. And he says, I've held 2 positions with the exact same duties and responsibilities and knock within the same company. Also, I'm receiving an ITA under Express Entry this month. Cool. That's exciting, Kunal. All right. So he says, please advise if I need to create 2 separate entries of work experience for each title and duration, or just one entry mentioning the latest title and entire work duration. So what he's asking here is, within the company, there was some kind of a shift in designation. Maybe it was, software developer level 1 or team lead 1, and then now they're a team lead 2, and maybe the duties haven't really substantially changed. In those situations, you do have options, but because the company has set it out in 2 different, in 2 different sections, you have choices. You can, if you want, include everything in one and just list your title as both of those titles. So that's sometimes what I'll do, and then have it over the whole course, especially if it's all the same duties and the knock hasn't changed. But I actually recommend that if your company treats it as 2 distinct positions, then their letter should also treat it as 2 distinct positions. And I create 2 different work histories in my work history section. And then when it comes time to uploading your reference letter, I upload the same reference letter in both spots. And that way it covers off everything. There's no confusion. And I find that's usually the best strategy. All right, great question, Kunal. All right, next one. This is from Ajay. And Ajay says, hi, Mark and team. Under Express Entry, in order to get an ITA, is both the comprehensive ranking system and the federal skilled worker selection factors, in other words, 67 points out of 100, required. I currently have a CRS of 471. Ajay, that is awesome, my friend. And 69 points out of 100 under the federal skilled worker selection factor. Which of these 2 is the determining factor in order to get an ITA? So this is a really good question. I'm going to go back and I'm going to explain it in a little bit more detail for people who don't quite follow what you're saying. But the short answer for you, if you're tuning in, is that it's the comprehensive ranking system score, not your federal skilled worker selection factors, that actually result in the ITA. So in other words, for your federal skilled worker selection factors, you could have 100 out of 100 points, and you could rank lower than someone who had a higher comprehensive ranking system score than you. So as long as you meet the minimum threshold, which is 67 points, then you're on a level playing field with everyone else. And then it falls to the comprehensive ranking system score that you receive. So what he's asking here, and I'll share my screen again, there are two parts to this. The first is being eligible under one of Canada's federal permanent resident programs. So what are the programs? Let's see if this will take me back. How express entry works. I never searched through this stuff in the same way. I'm going to go back here, see if I can find it again. Okay, so basically there are 3 programs, and if you chose to subscribe to my Express Entry Complete Step-by-Step Guide to Doing It Yourself, which if you just type in Canadian Immigration Institute, it's a brand new, I'm really excited about it. You go to individual guides, because I'm also creating business guides now. You click on here, learn more, and then you click on purchase guide. And then once you're here, there's 2 options, monthly or lifetime. If you go to lifetime and click purchase guide right here, and then type in the code EEDIY50 and apply it, you get 50% off. And so you can purchase it at $248.50. But within this course here, I have a ton of information that actually explains how it works. But for the purposes of our session today, at a high level, you must be eligible for the Federal Skilled Worker Program before you can ever get your application into the pool. And you don't even notice this assessment happening, because as you're answering the questions leading up to eligibility, the government's tool, their CRS tool, or actually it's this one here. I'm actually going to put this one it's called the Come to Canada tool for immigration. If you want to know whether or not you're eligible, you can actually go to this link, and this will assess whether you are eligible for one of the 3 federal programs. And I'll put that right into the comment section below. And so in order to assess that, the first thing they do is, do you qualify under the Federal Skilled Worker Program? And so if you look through here, there are actually selection factors that somewhat mirror the comprehensive ranking system for the Federal Skilled Worker Program. The other program is the Federal Skilled Trade Program, which has different requirements, and the Canadian Experience class. But unless you're in Canada, most people, it's the Federal Skilled Worker Program. So then it comes down to these selection factors that we have right here. And they're based out of a 100-point grid, and the pass mark is 67. And so when you go to the selection factor, it actually assesses many of the same things: language, education, work experience, age, arranged employment, adaptability. So there's a lot of similarities between the 2, but they are distinct, different assessments. Once you've met the eligibility assessment and you've shown that when they calculate it, you have at least 67 points, then you're eligible to submit your application into the, let's put here, criteria. Then you're eligible to put your application into the pool. And then once you're there, you're given another ranking based on the comprehensive ranking system score, which looks at age, education, language, and Canadian work experience in some cases. So those are the core human capital factors. But as we've talked about in the past, in past EE Live Q&As, if you're married, 40 of your points is given to your spouse. So if you are without a spouse, you can see right here, without a spouse, you're actually given more points for these factors, because if you're married, your spouse is also assessed. Don't even get me started on it, because I think it's prejudicial, but we'll leave it at that. Then it comes down to the skill transferability factors, which is really where the big points come. And you can earn up to 100 more points based on very good language and very good foreign work experience. And basically, yeah, this is what makes the difference between them. So long story, long explanation, but that's how it works, Ajay. So it all comes down to the comprehensive ranking system when it comes to getting your ITA. Okay, and I think, guys, that just about covers it off. This will be the last one, and then I'll answer live questions. So this one is from Muhammad, and he says, hope you're fantastic. I'm from Bangladesh. I just have seen you on Facebook Live watch party and expecting your help. Okay, well, your question got answered, but not everybody's did. So don't expect that it's going to get answered. You can hope, because I have to choose. Thanks for sharing the email. During filling out the form of my Express Entry account, there's a question that is asked for where I want to move. And this question comes 2 times. I'm applying for the Provincial Nominee Program Express Entry Stream. Considering everything, my CRS score, knock and profile condition, Alberta AI&P Express Entry Stream is favorable to me. So what should I put here in red marks? Should I put Ontario? I think selecting Ontario would not be a good idea since I don't have 400 plus points. My CRS is 355. In that case, should I put Alberta, or putting anything doesn't matter since the PNP application is generalized for all provinces? I can tell you, based on my discussions with the program manager within the Alberta program, that putting all provinces does not hurt you. So in fact, it is the way that I recommend everybody includes it. So at the profile stage, listing every province that you're willing to work, that you're willing to move to is the prudent way of doing it, because each of the provinces can't see all the other provinces that you've also selected. All they can see is that you've said, yes, I'm willing to move to that province. So yeah, you can put all provinces, but now here's my caveat. This is something you must remember. If, however, you have a nomination from a province, then everything else changes. When you submit your EAPR, you better list only that province as where you want to live and no other one. And you better intend to do it. There's nothing that bothers me more as not just a Canadian who lives in Alberta, but just from an ethical standpoint, people who are given those precious nominations for a province. It is just awful, I think, to use a province only just to get to Canada with never having even the slightest intention of ever living in that province. So if you're one of those people, don't do it. If a province shows faith in you and is willing to give you a shot that you didn't have otherwise, then use it. Give your best effort to try to make a life for yourself in that province. Obviously, if you're there, you try and it doesn't work out, there's freedom of mobility. You can move to different countries based on the Canadian Charter of Rights and different provinces based on our Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which grants freedom of mobility. But don't use a province unless you're actually intend to live there. All right, great question. This is awesome. We've covered tons of good ground. Now, anyone who's posted a comment up to this point, understand that I'm not going to go back and scroll through them, okay? So now, starting now, you can post your questions. And we will start it with Mokaria. Yes. So, and he says, I've created my profile on CSE and my score is 447. What are my chances to get an invitation? Well, we'll let other people connect, but this question I can answer it pretty simply. All we can do is guess. All we can do is estimate. So if we do rounds of invitations for Express Entry and we pull it up and look at the historical data, and I'll actually post this copy and I will put it in the comment section. Okay. If you look here at the rounds of invitations and you look at the historical totals, you'll be able to see past rounds of invitations and what they looked like. So 466, you can see 459, 460. Let's go back and see how long it's been since we had one at 440. That one doesn't count because it's basically it's under the Federal Skilled Trades, which is a different assessment. But if we keep going down, there's a 450 there, 51, 51, 52, 54, 57. And then this one back on January the 30th, earlier this year, 438. But I can tell you this was a total anomaly, and there were reasons why this was issued, but it's not going to get down to that level again. 443 was in January, and you can see the trend has just been basically upward, upward, upward. So what's the likelihood of you being able to get drawn at, and let me see if I can find it here. A whole bunch of people posted a bunch of questions. At 447, Mokaria, it's going to be pretty darn tough. Okay, really, really challenging. All right. Okay, so I think we're while we're waiting for other questions to jump in, I just wanted to go back once again to my new website and just let everybody know. And I guess in a way, this EE Live Q&A is sponsored by this. So I've got a section that describes all of the different services that I do. legal consults are probably one that I do more than anything else. So, excuse me, you can go to the site, you can click on this link, and we'll take you right to the scheduling place on my law firm website. If you go here, you can see that I provide assistance to immigration and families. So immigration, for individuals and families. And then I have a sizable portion of my practice is actually business immigration. So I work with companies all over the world who are looking to send people into Canada. And at the end of the day, guys, I just want to be someone that you can trust. And there are so many representatives out there, illegal, legal, that are just in it for the money. And my goal is to make sure that every single person who uses my services leaves feeling like they were truly cared for and represented. And that's my goal. Am I perfect? No, I'm not. And but I can tell you if there is a time where we fall short, I do everything in my power to fix or to make the experience better or improve. All right. So that's you can get my services there. Like I said, right now, the individual guide that I have is the Express Entry Complete Step-by-Step Guide right here. Study Permit is the next one that I'm going to be releasing here shortly. And then the business guides, I just released my very first one, which is labor market impact assessments for high wage positions. And those are the positions that you need to fill in order to be able to immigrate to Canada. And so you can go here and you can learn more about what this course is all about. And if you have a company in Canada that wants to offer you a job, but isn't interested in hiring and paying thousands of dollars to a consultant or a lawyer to do it, that's why I created this step-by-step guide. And it's all designed to show that company not only how to do it, but what they need to do to make sure that they are doing things in full compliance with immigration requirements. So I wanted to just show you that one. And then also my podcast. So my goal is to actually create this as another resource where I invite my fellow colleagues across the country to join me. And you can see some of the last ones that I did are all listed here. And you can watch these right in the player, or you can go to iTunes and watch the Canadian Immigration Podcast right on iTunes. And and then a little bit more information about me right here. So you can read what I do and my past experience as an immigration officer and lawyer. And of course, I was a high school teacher. So there's just a little bit of background on yours truly. Okay, let's jump to these live questions. And I'm going to try to answer as many as I can in the next, we've got, looks like just about 20 minutes. Maybe I'll go a little bit longer. Okay. Ahmed says, which time you will open the registration? It's open right now, Ahmed, for Express Entry and for all of the other programs. It's all there. So if I go individual guide here for you, and then I click on learn more, this will actually take you right to the spot where you can go here. And then remember, if you punch in that secret code that I gave you when you do the purchase the guide for the lifetime, if you type in EEDIY50, it will give you 50% off. Okay. All right. And of course, I didn't show you where I was going and what I was doing, which is sometimes I just get going so fast trying to explain things, it just never works. So basically, if we go back here, you're going to go to individual guides. And then I sent you a link right here that should take you right here. And then you click on purchase guide, lifetime access. And then once you're here, you type in the code EEDIY50 and apply it, and it will drop the price by 50% for you. Okay. All right. Next, we'll go back here. Next one is Parth, and he says, hey, Mark, I showed my proof of funds as fixed deposit, which is stated in the bank letter that they are auto renewal made. Okay. Auto renewal mode. But due to some glitch, the auto renewal didn't work and the funds are liquidated or in my account. Since the bank letter states the fixed deposits are auto-renewable, whereas they're liquidated, should I inform CIC about this? No, I wouldn't worry about it at this stage. If you've already filed your application and it's locked in, I wouldn't worry about that. Ultimately, the funds are liquid and available to you. As long as they're actually at the minimum amount that you need for proof of funds, then you're going to be okay. because obviously even fixed deposits are not as good as actually having the money in your account from the standpoint of having it in your possession. Every country is a little bit different. India is different than, say, the US and Canada. Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at with that. Okay, Umaid says, hi, I'm from Pakistan doing bachelor's in Australia. Hey, my brother's there working as a dentist right now. I applied for a temporary tourist visa, but it got rejected. Very common. And I bet, Umaid, you probably already had an express entry profile, right? Sometimes when you submit your profile and it's in the system, an officer who's assessing your visitor visa application or your temporary resident visa, they will use that against you and say, oh, you want to visit, but yet you've got a profile in. Even though it's not a formal application, they still do sometimes use that against you. Now, they can't use that as the exclusive reason for refusal, but they're creative. Okay. The question you made says, can you tell me, will it affect my application for express entry? And I can say, no, it doesn't. But you must disclose that refusal. Okay. Any refusal from Canada or another country for a visa, you need to fully disclose, but it's not going to result in you having a less chance of getting express entry. All right, Mark Reyes, my friend. Okay. I think you're going to I think we've got a consult tomorrow, don't we, my friend? Okay, he says, can an undocumented person in the U.S. be qualified for express entry under the Federal Skilled Worker Program? Or I guess the question is, does an immigration status from a foreign country count towards eligibility for the express entry without criminal history? And that's the key, Mark. Yes, you can be without status in another country. Immigration doesn't care too much about that, but you can't have broken any criminal laws that would equate to an offense under an act of parliament in Canada. That's considered to be what we call indictable. And so, or at least a maximum penalty that could be considered as a more serious crime. So yes, you can submit. And in fact, I've got an application in the queue right now for a wonderful couple in the US. And we're just waiting with our fingers crossed. Okay. Aryan says, hey there, Mark, what are the average processing times these days? Guys, I always stick with 6 months. There is no, sometimes it goes quicker, sometimes it takes longer, but 6 months is what they say 80% of the applications are. And so I leave it at that. Riemann says, hi, Mark, thanks from Dhaka, Bangladesh for your time and effort. I'd like to know about PNP opportunities for a NOC 4021. If you just give your advice shortly, that will be great. Thanks again. Riemann, that's actually a consultation kind of thing where we're evaluating the various PNPs and looking at your NOC, and that is a little bit beyond what we would be able to do here. So unfortunately, I can't give you even a short little advice on that one. Okay. Okay, Bayan says, I have a question about NOC, how to determine it based on the title the employer gives or based on the job description and duties. What about a job where an employee performs several duties under several NOCs, like teller, customer service, representative, financial advisor, a mixture of several NOCs? Okay, Bayan, this is a great question. So title is not completely, totally irrelevant, but it doesn't form a real basis of the actual assessment. Like I talked about before, it comes down to whether or not you've performed all of the activities in the lead statement on that NOC. So we jump back here and see if we can pull up NOC. So whether you've performed all of the activities in a lead statement, so in this case, here's the lead statement, and whether you've performed a substantial number of the main duties, okay? So that's really what it comes down to. And so when it comes to a position that you can't specifically identify to one NOC, well, you're gonna be in huge trouble because you have to have a primary NOC for them to assess. So you can't perform all of those duties you've listed there, teller, customer service, financial advisor. It has to be a substantial number of the main duties in one primary NOC. After you've satisfied that, 1 year paid, skilled, continuous full-time work, then you can use bits and pieces, well, not bits and pieces, but you can claim work experience in other NOCs. But once again, remember, it's a little bit of a tricky dance. If you're doing 2 roles for the same company at the same time and both are skilled, maybe you could break those both in pieces and say, I was working part-time as this position within the company and part-time as this position. But boy, I recommend you book a consult because that requires a lot of fendangling. All right. DC says, Mark, will the election in October have any impact on immigration? Please answer. It always does. The election most assuredly always has some impact on immigration. However, I can tell you that I strongly believe that it's not going to have a significant effect on express entry itself. I know that if, say, the Conservatives get in, then it's possible that they may look to opening up more programs and categories for lower skill workers to transition to permanent residence, because that's where they see there are shortages coming. But generally speaking, I don't see, and I haven't heard anything about significant changes coming to express entry. Okay. Gloria says, hello from Panama. Hey, great. Welcome, Gloria. I am curious to know, considering if it's possible to express an interest in all provinces and territories. Yes, this is one that I had said before. 100% at the profile stage. Cast your net broadly, no problem indicating, because each province isn't going to exclude you because you've also listed the possibility of wanting to go to another one. In fact, I don't believe they can actually see it. At least that's been my explanation. And so all they see is that you have an interest in that province, not all the other provinces you might have an interest in. And then I think you went into some other details, so we'll leave that one there. All right, Wallace says, hi Mark, thanks for the awesome work in answering our questions regularly. My question is as follows. I added my wife after receiving the ITA. My score dropped to exactly the minimum during my round of invitation. If I had the score when the draw was done, I would have lost due to tiebreaker since I submitted my application much later. Can I still go ahead and submit my application without being rejected? And do I need a letter of explanation for this scenario? Wallace, I can tell you that 100% you are at a significant likelihood of getting your EAPR refused if you're trying to add your spouse now. That tiebreaker effectively forms a part of the comprehensive ranking system. And so even though you may have had points on that same at that same level, if you would not have made it on the tiebreaker, then they can and have the discretion to go back and assess you exactly as not being or not having met the threshold to receive that invitation in the first place. So yeah, Wallace, it's huge. It's a huge issue. In all honesty, I recommend that we sit down and have a consult and talk about this in detail, because if you proceed forward, including your spouse, there's a significant likelihood that you will lose even your opportunity to move forward. And I have to assume with your, with your comprehensive ranking system score that you don't have a lot of flexibility, that you need this to work now. And adding a spouse after you've received it, your ITA, is a very, very difficult process. So I highly recommend that, whether you book a consult with me or not, I would discourage you from proceeding. And I would actually, if you haven't filed your EAPR, I would actually encourage you to not include your spouse unless you are sure. Well, no, even if you went back and into the pool, it's possible that once again, you could decline the ITA if you think you have a good chance of getting it again as an individual applicant. But I honestly believe in your situation, you're opening up yourself to a lot of trouble if you try to include your spouse. Arian says, I've got an ECA. Okay, great. Umaid says, hello, I'm from Pakistan doing my bachelor's in Australia. Applied for tourist visa. Yeah, I already read that one. Franco says, if I studied under a scholarship and I had to return back home, do I lose the 30 points for a Canadian degree, even if the time I was supposed to stay at my country has prescribed? Okay, so that's actually a really, really good question, Franco. And when it comes to claiming points, that does impact on the possibility. But I'm not sure. I'd need to see more details about this. I wish I could give you a more clear answer. But that's why they ask the question: was the studies a part of a program? Because the key here is that the agreements they have with those countries, like Saudi Arabia and otherwise, they allow for the people to come, and those governments oftentimes will pay for people to come so that they can get training and then go back and benefit their home country. So IRCC doesn't want to reward people who choose to break their ties to their home country and use that education and experience to come to Canada instead of benefiting their home country. So Franco, it could cause an issue, but I'd need more information. Aman says, how to get a pardon for DUI. It depends on if it's outside or inside Canada. We call it rehabilitation, Aman. And once again, those types of criminal assessments and the process for applying for rehabilitation is it's all on the government website. And let me see if I can pull this up for you right now, and I'll show you the link here. So right here, rehabilitation for persons who are inadmissible to Canada. This gives an overview of what's needed, and the application form and everything is here as well. And in most cases, these types of applications are actually, they're paper-based. So yeah, so I'll just copy that for you. You have to be 5 years, at least 5 years away from satisfying the disposition on that sentence in order for you to be eligible to submit an application. And whether it's serious or just regular criminality all depends upon the equivalency assessment for that DUI. And if it was included, one of the things I want to talk about too, for the purposes of rehabilitation in Canada, if your DUI occurred in Canada, then yeah, it's not called a pardon anymore. It's called a record suspension, and that process is also it's also laid out right here on how to apply, and I'll post those in the comment section as well. But I'm on this, there's a whole host of issues. If there's a DUI and you've just gotten it, it can make you inadmissible to Canada and affect everything. So a consult might be worthwhile for you. Okay, Arian says, I've got an ECA using a provisional degree certificate. Told CSE about it in the client info section. Is that enough? I've also uploaded the provisional certificate along with the ECA report and other educational documents in my EAPR. So I will often include the transcripts as well, everything that I can to prove education. It's up to the officer whether or not they want to accept that. In many cases, if Wes has accepted it for the purposes of an ECA, then it's not necessarily that immigration is going to reject it, but the officer has discretion. Okay, Emerson says, my question is, my son is born in Canada and he has a Canadian passport. I got deported 2 years ago. I'm in Albania. Do I have another chance to apply again to immigrate? I can tell you, Emerson, that you've got a 5-year bar, right? So you can't even apply until 5 years. And then at that stage, you go back into the queue like everybody else, except you need an authorization to return to Canada, a special permission from the minister or the minister's delegate. We call that an ARC, and there's no guarantee. Deportations are not a great thing, and you really have to, yeah, when you're submitting it, you need to apply for that ARC, and if it's not accepted, you're not coming back. But anytime there's a deportation, that's a big deal. Okay, Aman says last DOI was in 2014. It needs to be 5 years clear. And so 2014 to 2000, and that's not when the disposition, that's not when you were convicted, but it's after that 5 years has passed. And you can see for the record suspensions, sorry, right here, I'm not even sure if I shared that with you, the record suspension part right here within the link I've posted, that will give you all the information that you need, including the waiting periods associated with the offense. And it depends upon a lot of different factors. Okay. All right. Med says, I worked 1.5 years under NOC 7244. Then I just started 4 months ago with another company, and I will be able to use my whole experience in my EE application. Yeah, I don't see any reason why not. As long as you meet the minimum entry criteria for the Federal Skilled Worker Program, and remember that's a different assessment. When it comes to calculating work history for the Federal Skilled Worker Program, that work history has to be all in the same NOC. But once you're applying for the comprehensive through express entry, then you can use multiple NOCs. It's okay, as long as one is at least 1 year paid continuous full time. All right, Umaid says, hi, I'm from Pakistan. Okay, you've repeated that again. Mahesh says, hi, Mark. Mahesh from India, I have a great news to share. I will be doing a soft landing this weekend. My wife, who is a primary applicant, has landed a month ago. My question is about proof of funds. Do I need to show proof of funds again? Is it mandatory to carry one? My spouse, being primary applicant, would have already showed it during her first landing. I would include it just in case. Like, the likelihood of you having to demonstrate it is remote. It is really, really unlikely, but there's no harm in including it with you. Okay? Great job, Mahesh. Congratulations. I'm so, so happy for you and your family. Okay, Yasser says, I have 339 CRS. Should I apply in all provinces? Because I've only done with PEI so far, and waiting for an ITA. Well, at the end of the day, with a score that's quite low like you have there, you need to cast your net broad. So try whatever you can. Okay. Jaspel says, my wife's getting salary in cash. Is there any issues? Well, people get paid in a lot of different ways. You have to prove that she was paid. And sometimes, like, does she have a pay slip? Did she deposit the money in the account? Is there evidence of filing taxes and showing that income through other means? How is your reference letter? Does it clearly indicate everything? So it's not mandatory that you provide proof of, say, a wire transfer into your bank account directly. A letter and pay slips are sufficient. Okay, Jasdeep's asking questions about minimum funds for investment visa. That's a whole different discussion, and Canada doesn't have a merely passive investment scheme anymore. Not generally through the federal program. They've closed those down. Provinces like Quebec still do have those types of investment programs, but most of the PNPs have gone to an entrepreneur type style where you actually invest in a company, come in, manage it, create jobs for Canadians. But Jasdeep, Quebec is probably the only place that you can go, and that goes beyond the scope of this EE Live Q&A. All right. Gurjeet says, hey, Mark, it's always a pleasure to see you here. How are you doing? I'm doing great. I'm doing really, really good, my friend. Okay, Ramandeep says, does a one-year diploma in business management done from distance learning by a reputable Indian university considered by Wes or not? My friend, because there are so many schools all over the world, I can't answer that. The only way you can do it is by submitting the request to Wes and seeing. All right. Okay, Ronak says, I have 2 years of work experience from India, but the position is unable to match with roles and responsibilities. My letter mentions 2 different positions with both duties. Can I use only one knock for federal skilled worker? You have to show that you've performed a substantial number of the main duties for that primary knock. And for it to work, you need to have at least 1 year of continuous paid full-time work experience. If you are working in multiple roles, then maybe that would have to be part-time. So maybe you'd have to work 2 years to show that you'd worked sufficient number of hours in a part-time capacity to meet the minimum requirement in the same knock. So that's kind of how I'd address that. Waki says, how about rural immigration pilot program? Any updates on this? This is entirely driven by those communities. Claresholm, for instance, is one of the towns that is actually on the list here in Alberta, and there's not a lot of information we have about it. Actively right now, there are not too many communities that I know that are actively going out and looking. But it's a good thing. I think I should invite someone from maybe Claresholm to come join me on my podcast. Good question. I'm going to make a note of that. Claresholm, the rural pilot. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that for one of my next podcasts. Okay, Kamal says, hey, Mark, I received an ITA in the recent draw. Awesome. That is so exciting. CRS 459. But I'm turning a year older in the next 10 days. So will I lose 5 more points? Will this get my ITA canceled? Okay. So Kamal, first thing I want to let you know is that I do have the special discounted offer for individuals who sign up right away for my review. $500 off. I do it for $2,000. So that's the first thing I want to let you know. And I've got a number of people that have taken me up with on that, and I still have some capacity for some other people. So if you'd like me to review your whole application, documents, step by step through every aspect of it, that's my silver plan. And I think it's freaking awesome. But to answer your specific question, you are totally fine. You don't need to worry. So we're going to go here, and then I'm going to click on A 11.2 EE, and that should be enough there. So when an officer is assessing an application, if there's a change that happens that results in a comprehensive ranking system score going down, generally that can result in you no longer being eligible if it happens before you submit your EAPR. But I want to show you something here because there's a special policy that applies directly to you. And we're going to keep scrolling down. There it is. So this is the exemption for candidates whose birthdays occur after they received an ITA. So it says here that the applicant may have a birthday after they receive the ITA, but before they submit their EAPR. Their change in age may lower their score below, and this is what would happen to you. So this is a great question, Kamal. It may also result in you no longer meeting the minimum entry for the federal skilled worker class. And consequently, no MEC results in a refusal. So here's the thing. When a change in age results, and it affects your MECs or your CRS, officers should consider applying the public policy to exempt applicants for permanent residency from certain age-based requirements. And you can see right here, if we click on it, I'm going to copy this for you, and I'm going to paste it in the comments here, and this will confirm that you're okay. So you're going to be doing just fine. I'm really excited for you. So you can just, if you do want to connect with me and learn a little bit more about this review, it's just like this, except I share my screen. We go through every aspect of your application. I even go back to your profile to make sure there's nothing off on that. I go through all of your supporting documents, everything. And then you have control. That's the part I love best because it's in your own MyCIC account and you have control over the whole process. Once it's submitted, then you don't need to be contacting me for the status updates. It's all in your own file. And those of my many, many clients who have used that, personally, I love it even better than my full representation. And it's 5,000 times better than any consultant or the traditional way of representing people where you don't even know what's happening half of the time once you give the information to your consultant or your lawyer. So consider that, Kamal. I'd love to work with you. Okay, next. Okay, let's see. We've got a few, there's a lot here. So I know I'm not going to be able to get to the end because I'm already over time and I have more consults starting at 1:30, but I'll go for another 4 minutes here. Dahaf says, hey Mark, hope you're doing well. I have a consult with you on Thursday. Awesome. Very cool. Wanted to know, will Express Entry end in the near future? No, it is not. It is going to be here to stay. I see no indication whatsoever that they would want to get rid of Express Entry. It's a perfect program for the government. They can determine exactly how many people are coming in. They can highly target specific occupations depending upon need. The provinces have their say. No. Anyone who's telling you that is fear-mongering. And in fact, they're trying to get you to quickly submit your application and pay them money out of this fear that somehow it's going to close. So I've heard nothing. And remember, guys, I am currently serving as the vice chair on the Canadian Bar Association's national, well, actually, I'll be the vice chair in September in a couple days. I'm the secretary right now, and we have not heard any feedback through the Canadian Bar Association's national immigration section from anyone that there's any rumblings about the program changing, or I should say just being eliminated. Okay, I look forward to connecting with you, Dahaf. And once again, everybody else, I am offering 50% off even my consultations. So if you reach out to Stephanie right away, or you go to the link, I'll share my screen again here, right here on my firm website. And that is basically stringham.ca/immigration-mark-holthe. That, and I'll put that in the comment section. That is how you can book a consult. And if you act before tomorrow, I think it is, you can get that 50% off. Otherwise, it's going to go back to $210 Canadian or $212.50. I can't remember exactly what it is with GST. All right. Good question, Dahaf. Okay. Ban says, thank you. Ramandeep says, okay, I've already answered that one. Guri says, hi, I heard Express Entry federal skilled trade draws happen once in a year only. Is that true? But federal skilled worker after 2 weeks. No, it's actually 2 times they will do a federal skilled trade. Now, it's not always that, and they can do as many as they want. When it comes to the federal skilled worker, generally it's every 2 weeks, but sometimes they do draws. If there's a federal skilled trade, then it might be a month between draws with the federal skilled worker. Okay. Let's see here. Aryan says, what are the chances of the Conservatives coming into power? 50-50. That's probably what I'll say. Harjinder, my wife's niece is a Master of Science with Math, and now she's a teacher in India. She can come to Canada. Okay, Harjinder, that's another one that you need to book. One of these right here, my friend, right on my book a scheduled consult, a paid consult to do that assessment, because I can never do that justice right here. Okay, Muhammad says, Mazur says, hey, my study visa rejected twice in 2016. Is there any chance to apply for immigration? Yeah, they're not, like, permanent residence is different than temporary. You can have as many prior temporary refusals as you like. Make sure you disclose it in your application, otherwise you could be found to have misrepresented yourself. Okay, Muhammad is asking for an assessment. I can't give you an assessment, Muhammad, about which province. That would require, once again, a consultation. Okay. We need to make sure these questions are of general nature so they benefit as many people as possible. Okay. Okay. Isaiah also says, housekeeper, supervisor, apply for express entry. You need to book a consult. Remember, 50% off if you guys act quickly now. Okay. Gurji says, how much is your fees for submitting an application? When I fully represent my clients, I charge $5,000 Canadian to fully act for them and submit their application through my portal. But right now I have this awesome deal that I'm offering to do reviews for individuals of their own express entry applications for only $2,000 Canadian, which is only for a limited period. I think tomorrow is when that cuts off as well. So you need to reach out to Stephanie and let her know, or post a request through here to lock in that special offer. And then you need to make sure that you explain that you heard about it here. Okay. Otherwise, people who are not watching these videos are not going to benefit from that deal. It's only for you guys. Okay. Pankul says, I have 3 gas stations in BC under the same company. Can you process LMIA applications on behalf of my company? Of course, Pankul. And like I just said, within my actual courses, I have one that's specifically geared towards LMIAs, but I do this all the time. Labor market impact assessments are probably one of the most common, and right here in my business guide is probably one of the most common types of applications that I submit for my clients. So just send an email directly to Stephanie Pankul, and we can definitely work through what it takes to get that LMIA. Now remember, as always, in order to be successful, there are 2 pillars to LMIAs. One is that you're offering a wage that is at the prevailing wage rate, which is often the average wage for the occupation based on the government statistical data. And 2, that you are posting the advertisements in such a way that Canadians and permanent residents have that first crack at that position. If you can show there's no Canadian or permanent resident qualified to fill the position or that is interested in it, then yeah, you'll be successful. If not, then after the advertisement stage, you would need to hire a Canadian or a permanent resident that applied before you could offer the position to a foreign national. All right, great job, Pankul. Great question. Okay, Tarima says, when could be the next draw? Good question. Once again, we kind of go down to when we're looking at the rounds of invitations here. You can see here, if we go back, the last draw right here that occurred was August the 20th. So we're the 27th today. So more than likely it's going to be a week from tomorrow, next Wednesday, but anything could happen. They can do draws at any time. We just don't know. Okay. Arvind says, is there any significant shortage of nannies in Canada? Okay, so this one actually goes outside of express entry, but if you want to book a consult, we can talk about that. Jasdeep's given me some thumbs up with Abraham Lincoln. Thank you very much, my friend. Ramandeep, I don't communicate via WhatsApp. There's too many avenues, and I just can't stay on top of all of them. So the best way to connect with me is via the firm website, which is at this link right here, which I've posted, or to reach out directly to Stephanie via email here, stephanie@stringham.ca, and then she can set up a paid consultation. Same thing, Jasdeep. Yeah, I don't, like, as far as PM, you need to follow the consultation request that I've listed here. I can see these are just pumping in, guys, and I'm not going to be able to get to everybody's. So I think I'm going to stop right there. I think I sure gave it a good college effort to get to as many people as possible. But remember, every Tuesday at noon Mountain Standard Time, right here on the Canadian Immigration Institute's Facebook page, this is where I'm hosting these now. I want to thank all of you guys so very, very much for being a part of this. I want to thank all of you awesome clients who have been booking consultations, and they've just been so positive. And that's what I love doing more than anything else, is doing that. And that's another reason why I love doing the reviews, because I get to work one-to-one with you. And it's so much more efficient and so much more accurate. And it avoids so many hassles that happen and problems that occur when we're trying to transfer information and submitting things into my portal, which I can't really show you guys anyways. And being able to do it through your own MyCIC is hands down one of the best processes. I absolutely love it. All right, I think, let's see here. I think we've covered it all off. DC says, thank you. Yeah, and for those of you, I can see all these really great questions, you guys. I am so sorry. I wish I could go through and I could respond to all of them, because you guys are, yeah, you've been so patient. So if I wasn't able to get to your questions, and I can see a lot here, wow, there are so many. Please, yeah, forgive me for that. And Giri says here, so your fees to handle the application is $2,000. The $2,000 is not for me to fully represent. That's $5,000. The $2,000 is for you to do everything in your MyCIC. And I forgot as well, with that, I give you free access, lifetime access to the Express Entry complete step-by-step guide. So you get lifetime access together with that $2,000. And you can see here, the regular is $497 US. So if you're interested, Jury, then just send an email to Stephanie. I think I've got most everybody connected. Kamal, I'd love to work with you. Just let me know. And I think I've got the rest. Everybody, yeah, there's so many, guys. I'm so sorry. Jerry says, do you have a branch in Edmonton? I can tell you that very shortly I will. But everything is virtual, everything is online. So having an in-person really doesn't add anything to the Express Entry process. I act for people all over the world. All right. If you have any further questions or any comments or anything or any ideas on making these EE Live Q&As better, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. At the end of the day, specific legal advice is via a paid consultation, but I always welcome feedback on these. Hopefully this was helpful for all of you guys. And I guess I will see you all next Tuesday at noon right here on the Canadian Immigration Institute Facebook page. Thanks so much. Wish you guys all the best. Canadian immigration lawyer Mark Holthe, ex-immigration officer, signing off, wishing you guys all the best as you navigate this crazy world that we call Express Entry. Bye now.